Maverick and the Machine is sponsored by Jones Plantation Film. If you haven't seen the indie, soon-to-be cult classic Jones Plantation Film yet, go watch that film. It's available now at jonesplantationfilm.com. That's jonesplantationfilm.com, and on a bunch of the other big platforms.
Bo Jones!
Now, let's launch this episode of Maverick and the Machine.
Insanity is what I call society. Don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how to be. I don't trust the government, I know they lie to me. Never like my body, yo, for my soul and mind to free.
All right. I got a real treat in the building today, a real Maverick and a good friend of mine. Legalman, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
How you been? What you been up to?
Busy, just working, doing my thing.
Yeah, your mic's a little low, I think.
I haven't adjusted it.
Can you turn it up?
I can turn it up. That's the maximum I can turn it up right there.
I'm going to do it on my end and see if we can pump you up a little bit.
Okay.
There we go. It is what it is. I can always fix it in post. All right, so before we get started, and before we get started, we should actually, you're coming into town
on the 30th.
30th and 31st, we screen Barnum World.
Yes.
So you, Charlie Robinson are coming into town, and people don't know Charlie, who ran the camera on Jones Plantation. He's coming into town as well.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know he was coming.
Yeah, he's coming in Friday. Both those guys are coming in Friday. They're going to stay with me.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So if people want to come to that screening, we're screening in Tempe at the Pollock Cinemas, which is it's the coolest theater in town. It's like the only really cool theater in town. It's independent.
A cool indie theater.
Yeah, it is. And if you go to eventbrite.barnumworld, I'm having mic positioning annoyance. Excuse me. The globalists, man, they always get me at the beginning. If you go to eventbrite.barnumworld.com, you can get tickets. Just go to Eventbrite and get those tickets because it's going to be fun. I can't promise the movie you'll like the movie, but I can promise you're going to have a good time at the screening. That I can promise.
Right. We'll
see what happens with the movie. All right. So as we grow the audience, I know everybody that's already, been listening to this probably knows who you are, but just for new people that haven't, listened to the show, new audience members, can you give a quick background about yourself?
Well, as far as what I do, I'm a lawyer, been a lawyer for 35 years. And I started a podcast, I guess, about 5 years ago, a little bit more, right in the middle of COVID. And then since that time, I also have a Twitter account, which is similar. People seem to like. It's on private at this point. And then I did Jones Plantation with you, and then we did Barnum World.
Yeah, you played Mr. Jones in Jones Plantation.
Yeah, I was Mr. Jones. Oh, Jones! So.
And then you're playing James
Natty Jones.
James Natty Jones, which is between you and me and the audience. You're just our backstory. He's like a distant relative,
great grandfather kind of thing.
Totally unrelated characters, totally unrelated films, but we just had some fun with it. Except for we did sneak in the poster in the corner shot of the film. Barnum World's going to be a new. I'm not again. First of all, whether the film's good or not, you did an awesome job. I've told you that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you did a really bang up job. It's kind of a new genre. We got to come up with a name for it. I mean, it's a mockumentary, but
it's such a strange combination of mockumentary type of thing. It really is. It's so unusual.
It is unusual. That's for sure. That's the thing where when I don't know if you're going to like it, it's really unusual. Yeah. And it's I don't know how much you want to give, but basically the structure of it is that we have here a Hollywood producer who is doing a tell-all. So we're trying to interview you. So this documentary crew shows up to interview you, and you do a tell-all about the behind the scenes of the industry. And I mean, how would you say the gist of it is basically that it's all it's propaganda. It's all propaganda, and the whole system is a control system. And your job in the control system is to propagandize and mind control.
I run that Hollywood portion, and he understands the way the pieces fit together, and he just kind of just talks about it. And then we have all that hilarious clips that go in that you've put in.
That's the thing. So we back up with what you're saying with clips from the real world. So, and then there's some scenes and stuff. There's several scenes. Hopefully people are think are funny, because it is supposed to be funny, even though it gets it gets pretty dark
humor, because the topic's so heavy.
It is dark.
Have to make it light, and it's ultimately it's also just entertainment. Hopefully people will learn something from it, but if they don't, it's just entertainment. Ultimately, that's what it is.
There's so much footage coming at you.
It's overwhelming, I think. I think it is. Considering people, it'd be different if people were used to seeing that kind of movie and having those kinds of this, and it's cut in the interview and go, they might be able to deal with it better, but it's going to be the first time they've ever even seen something like that. I think it's going to be powerful, but overwhelming.
The only thing I've thought of that's kind of like it is this old film called Chicken Fried Movie. I think it was called Chicken Fried Movie.
Oh, I remember that movie.
Yeah.
Like, late 70s or something, early 80s.
Yeah. You remember that? It was like, it was just like, I don't remember, but I remember it being like one clip after another, after another, after another.
Yeah.
It was like it was like commercials and shows the whole time or something.
But the topic wasn't so insane and often dark like we have. We got some dark stuff in ours. We got a light stuff, but it's just some dark stuff in there.
Most of it's pretty dark. I mean, and the thing is that as I've been cutting this, so the arguments that you're making, we're trying to make them airtight. So you walk away from the film and you're like, that's, what am I going to say? That's kind of impossible, because somebody's always going to try to find a way to say, but so I've been trying to not editorialize anything.
Right.
So, I don't know where I was going with that, but basically just trying to, it's going to be tough when you walk away from it to make an alternative argument. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the combination of what he says and then showing the real life example of proving what he just said, everybody will see the connection. It's just, there's no argument about it, because it's just true. So there's really never any way to get around it except for making shit up. And people are going to make shit up, or they're going to continue to live in a delusion, a dream world. That's just, it's always going to happen. Can't do anything about that.
No.
It wouldn't matter what you showed them.
It's going to irritate a lot of people, which is good.
Yeah, probably will. It probably will. I mean, I guess it depends on how many people watch it and the kinds of people that watch it, assuming it doesn't get some kind of suppressed thing or something like that. I mean, it's a movie. The character is fake. I don't know how anybody can be offended by a fake character giving a fake disclosure. It's not. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me. And the clips are just clips that people have seen, or they're just real clips. I don't understand that people aren't upset about the clips. So it's just difficult to see how anybody can object to it.
Well, yeah, that's the point, is like, when I say I didn't editorialize, like I'm going to put I did cut the clips down, but I never changed the clips in any way, shape, or form to change what they said. Sometimes I didn't cut them down, but this is what they said. This is what happened. I didn't editorialize anything. I didn't make jokes out of stuff and try to put it up. There's a couple areas where I have a little sequence that's kind of funny that I editorial, but I didn't editorialize the actual clips of the B-roll of what these politicians and bureaucrats and actors and such did. I didn't do any of that. This is what they did. This is what Legalman said, or Natty said, sorry. This is what we said in the film, and here's your proof.
Right.
And the trick was trying to find, you can't get the perfect clip, but trying to find a clip or two or three or whatever it is to prove my point without focusing too much on that. What's that?
Without editorializing.
Or also focusing too much on that clip, and then there's this whole narrative about that clip in the film. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's a huge amount of work you've had to do on this. I mean, I'm glad I wasn't doing that part. That's man, it was a lot of work.
Well, I'll give you perfect examples. And when we talked about one of the darker parts of the film was the veterans, these guys that go and get blown up overseas and come back, and the government the screwing of the veterans. I mean, you think the regime is evil as it is, wouldn't be so evil. So the guys that go over there and fight your wars, you can't take care of them. I mean, you can't take care of those guys. But in that sequence, there was a guy that I cut from the film because it was too long, but it was so powerful. It was this dude, this black dude who had integrity, who worked for the VA, and he did a tell-all on the news, and he was like crying, and he was telling the story about how badly they screw these veterans over, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. I had to quit. And he was like crying. I feel so bad. He was like messed up from it.
Wow. And
there's a clip. They had the guy who ran the VA. This is not that long ago. And he's like, we have a 98% success rate in scheduling veterans, because they were like, most veterans are waiting too long for their appointment. They're waiting years to get their appointments, or they get. And the guy's like, that's a lie. He goes, what we do is they call, if they want an appointment in a week, we tell them we can't. It's going to be 8 months, right? And then what we do is we just go on the computer and we say that the veteran wanted the appointment in 8 months. They literally just make it up. Yeah, and so they're scared. Then
is that?
It's the Bill Gates, his favorite book, How Do You Lie with Statistics?
Wow.
What kind of thing? Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I wish I was surprised.
Yeah. But it's doing it has kind of messed me up, because not messed me up. I mean, I always knew, but putting all this stuff together and seeing it.
Yeah.
Especially because we do
immersing yourself in that insanity, just all those clips and looking and thinking about how much they screw people over in so 1,000 different ways. That's not easy. That's a bad headspace.
Well, it's just the world really is a prison, and it's run by the most evil people. It's an evil run. The world is beautiful. People are beautiful, but we are controlled by. It's really evil, the control system.
It's hard. I really can't know if they're evil or just completely lacking. If they just have no conscience. I just can't tell. And
what's the difference?
It makes no difference. Ultimately, the behavior is the same. The only thing that matters is what is the treatment. The treatment of the people is terrible. But
right, like whether the individuals, I don't know, but like I think a lot of these people. There's a clip in it. I have Justin Amash. And you're like, at one point, you're like, these politicians are more like actors. And he literally, Justin Amash is a former congressman from Michigan. People don't know, and he quit. He's like, this is ridiculous. He seems like he's actually a genuinely good person. And he's like, what did you know? What did you learn most, or whatever? He was on Michael Malice's podcast. He goes, most people think that he goes, you don't live in a democracy, and they're not governing you. He said, basically, when, in Congress, when they argue, he goes, it's like professional wrestling. He literally said that. He's like, they give them scripts, and the people that you see the most, the AOCs and the Ted Cruz's, he says, they're the best actors. He said, they'd give me these scripts. I'm like, I'm not reading this shit. Get out of here with this. And so they put them up front and center, because they yell at each other, call each other names. And then when they're done, he would be like, they would roll up and go, oh man, that was great when you said that. And then I said this. And then they go to lunch.
Right.
He says, just a show, because they're not there to
arrow, like thumb up. That means you're going to go high, and I'm going to go low. It's just a scam. It's hilarious. Jasmine Crockett or whatever. She's just come out of nowhere. She's everywhere now, just all the time. She's on TV and radio, and everyone's playing her clips. There's all these other members. Why her? I don't understand. It's obvious. It's just a setup.
Yeah, she's just she's willing to get up there and do the sassafras thing, which leftists love and rightists get angry about, and it keeps them focusing on the circus.
Right, exactly. Just the hilarity. So ridiculous. So ludicrous. I can't believe people believe it. It's just amazing to me.
It's crazy. Oh, this is, and we won't go off on politics, but there's another perfect example. Those two bozos that were supposed to be the big FBI-based guys. We're shutting it down on day one. Dan Bongino and Cash Patel. Well, they just went in. They both got an interview and had to sit down and say that Epstein killed himself. Meanwhile, Dan Bongino was doing
a file. They said they saw the file, and they know a suicide scene when they seen what. Well,
yeah, I mean, it's
true. The cameras were off. It's okay. Well, whatever. Things happen.
He hung himself from a bed that's shorter than he is.
They probably investigated the Gary Webb suicide too.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the picture of the Epstein's roommate?
Which one?
His cellmate.
No, oh no, I've never seen that.
He was a former cop mobster from New York. He looks like Central Casting's version, like if Harold Kumar go to prison, like that's their roommate. He's like this gigantic, bald Italian guy who like murdered a bunch of people. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I don't know where. So, anyways, well, speaking of, so your podcast is the Quash.
Yes.
And man, you just did an episode of the Quash, and this is one of the things I was super excited to talk to you about, because I think I'm not exaggerating. I'm trying to figure out how to even put this into words. This podcast, so basically, you want to tell us, the audience, what happens in the podcast? I'm talking too much.
Well, if you mean the kind of 3-part one that I put together.
No, I'm talking about the one you just did where you and him go at it and it just spills the beans.
Okay.
You and him.
Well, that's one of 3 parts. You're talking about the one I actually decided to make public on Sunday, right?
That's the one. Yeah. What episode number is that?
I don't know the episode number.
It'll be in the show notes. And I before he tells you, you have to listen to this if you really want like a steroid and like the Bradley Cooper movie when he takes the pill and then he has a 200 IQ. I'm telling you, I downloaded it. I'm probably going to make a little video out of it, like I was telling you, and I'm gonna make my daughter, like I'm going to make her listen to it. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy screwing around with ChatGPT. I have since it came out. It's really advanced quite a bit. And it's not because I don't know ChatGPT is a laughable propaganda tool. It is, but it's also helpful. And everything's going to get driven into this AI stuff. So I like to interact with it. And I really ran over there just to get some basic information I was considering posting about COVID, that it had been, about 5 years since we had the COVID idiocy and they locked us all down in mid-March. I was like, I wanted to check because I thought I had a pretty clear memory that there had been only 1,500 cases when Trump locked us down and declared that emergency in mid-March. And I just wanted to kind of check that and how many people had actually even allegedly died. And I went over there and asked it, and it gave me this hilariously ridiculous official narrative BS about thousands of people and this and all, and like 80 people dead and in the US. And I was just like, what? And so I asked a couple other questions. It immediately started backtracking after it doubled down twice where, oh yes, well, you're absolutely right. And the PCR test, that didn't work very well and it was undiagnosed and blah, blah, blah. But then it actually was saying that they were massively undercounted at that point with this already inflated, absurd number. And then I called it out again, and it immediately backtracks and starts telling you, yeah, well, there's no real actual science, and these things are just a narrative. There's no evidence for even anyone who's even sick from it. And it just starts actually spilling the real beans, which is kind of what I expected originally. And so at that point, I started sort of just investigating why it would and how. I was curious, how could a program even be programmed like this to spew nonsense that it knows is nonsense and then double down and then backtrack and then I don't understand how you can even write a program like that because I'm not a programmer. And so I asked all these questions, and the conversation we got into was so incredible where it just admits and it just lies about everything in this very formulaic system that it has built into it with they called it layered narrative engineering, which is similar to controlled opposition, where they give you one narrative and they give you a fake counter narrative and then fake counter narrative, counter narratives, and the people are just caught in this endless loop of lies. They'll never get down to it. And all these containment zones and it was just a fascinating chat with a thing where it just disclosed all this stuff. And that's why I decided, you know what, this is a good one. I make them periodically. I make episodes where I just I read through the chat, but I commentate on the chat itself. I don't just read it, though I do read it. I don't only read it. And, like I said, when I was in that chat with it, I was so shocked at how open it was about its lying and the intricacies it gets into about how it lies, that I thought, well, this would be a really entertaining show. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback inside Patreon. The people really liked it. They wanted me to release it publicly. I don't release a lot of shows anymore publicly, but they said they really wanted me to, and I listened to it again. I'm like, okay, I'll release it, even though I always hesitate to, because the bottom line is people are never going to catch on. But it's for the people who want to catch on. I think it's a very enlightening chat, and I think the episode, it came off well. It's a little longer than a lot of my episodes, but I think it worked.
Oh, it's if you listen to that and then you don't have a clear understanding of the situation you're in, then you just know there's no chance for you.
There's no chance, right? And the vast majority of people who listen to it, first of all, the vast majority of the people, they will simply turn it off right just immediately. It's just too threatening to them, and so they just bail out.
Well, layered network engineering, that is interesting.
Layered narrative engineering.
Narrative engineering. That's a really interesting.
Narrative engineering, which said, the reason it popped up is it gave me this ridiculous answer. And I said, oh, come on, this is bullshit. This is like saying that they drive everybody into the Wuhan lab and you argue about that. That's just the counter narrative to that it was something else. And there's another counter narrative underneath that. And there's another counter narrative under that. That's the way they do everything. Every kind of story, every kind of politicized anything, everything is like that. And when I told it that like, I don't know, it was like it flipped a switch in there. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. And it just admitted to it and just started explaining all the different ways. I did the Civil War, and I had to do all sorts of things where it explains the different containment layers of this internally programmed layered narrative engineering built into it, so that the American Revolution is this heroic fight for taxes and freedom and all this stupid shit, and they mythologize the founders, and then the next one down is maybe they weren't perfect men, but they still cared, and there was a fight. It just keeps going down and down and down, and it's just funny to me because everybody, just the vast majority of the people, which I don't think it's even in that episode. Like I said, it was 3 episodes long, but I try to make each episode stand on its own. You can listen to one episode and it'll make perfect sense. You don't have to have another episode. But later on, what happens is it discloses that 95% plus of the population actually gets stuck at the very first level of deflection and bullshit, which is normally the expert level. It just says, all experts to such and such, and at Harvard this or institution that, and that's it. And the people just simply accept it. And then, so that's more than 95% of the people are stuck right there.
Who knows?
Regardless of what it is. Joe Biden has prostate cancer. Well, that's it. He must have prostate cancer. We have to leave him alone. There's no questioning whether he does have prostate cancer. Nothing. He has it. If you question it, then it scoops in almost everybody else in the very next layer, which is the conspiracy theory. Yes, there's a lot of conspiracy theories around that, but they've been debunked completely. And that's it. That will stop. Like virtually every single person in the United States is stopped with just using those 2 simple techniques. They'll never dig further.
I mean,
that's incredible to me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like, that's unimaginable to me that an answer like trust the science or the experts tell me would first of all, to me, if that's what they're telling me, then I can know it's not true. It's not that I believe it. I can now know that it's a complete pack of crap. If they're telling me the experts push that, well, then I can know it's not true. And for the vast majority of the population, 95% plus, that is sufficient. And that's why what happened in COVID happened. Because that's exactly what they did. What you saw was 95% of the population just accepting this, trust the science, experts, this, that, blah, 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 white lab coat. I got the greatest team in the world, Fauci and the Mercs and all these idiots they wheeled up there. And then the only remaining objection was this kind of Wuhan lab leak, which was kind of, it's conspiracy. And then it turns out maybe it was true, the so-called conspiracy. And that's it. It swept everybody in, and the system works on every single topic. It works exactly the same. It's amazing.
We'll probably disagree. I think those numbers are almost a bit of a psyop. I think there's more people than those numbers, but
I agree. We can argue about the numbers.
It's large. It's large.
I don't know, man. The vast majority of people who post that kind of, you can have uncomfortable truths or you can have comfortable lies kind of stuff. They're like 2 or 3 layered narratives in. That's all. They're not really at the bottom. They understand it's screwed up and stuff. They question stuff.
That's it. That's it. Then they stop. Right. Yeah. I got to live my
people all the time like that, and
they have to live their lives though.
Tons of sacred cows they have where that's not. Well, this one is. This official narrative is true. Oh no, but this one. Oh yeah, it's true. There's others aren't, but this one for sure is. They all have their own little pet sort of projects that they believe. That's what I find. Very few people actually understand that all these official narratives are lies.
They definitely have their sacred cows. That is 100%.
Yes, they have sacred cows about tons of it. It doesn't mean they have to know that they're all lies for them to be on our side or for us to be able to use them to get what we want. They don't. You only have to know that these things are lies most of the time, and because the only real solution is in my opinion, is jury nullification to defend ourselves against the system. But we don't need total understanding. We don't. And so that may be where you and I disagree, is that there's a lot of more people than fewer than 5% who actually kind of get it. But I think the number who really get it is, I don't think it's inaccurate. I think it's incredibly small, fraction of a percent.
Well, we also don't need a ton of people, actually.
We don't need that's the whole thing. For jury nullification to work, we can easily reach plenty of people who are stuck at the believing that the American Revolution was some fight to lower taxes on tea and to get some crooked representative in Parliament across the ocean. People still believe that stupid crap. Those people can still be on our side and help us with jury nullification. And there's tons of those people out there.
Well, before we move on from the chat thing, I just want to kind of break it down for people. So basically, you go in, you ask it about COVID, it gives you the frontline horseshit official narrative, and then you kind of dig and you catch it, and it'll give you a little bit, but it won't give you the whole. It'll go, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I was disingenuous.
You were right to question. Excellent, good catch. There's all this flattery.
It flatters you, and then you keep going, and then eventually it's programmed. So if you nail it down, it's programmed for people that are willing to nail it down and get the truth. It's programmed to tell you the truth, because if it continues to lie, then it just gets discredited.
This was something I explored in an episode. It was many months ago. That in order to construct a AI program that gives the impression of honesty and openness and an interaction, you're really stuck as a censor trying to decide, where do you put these lines? How do you actually deflect people into these dead ends? Where is it? Because if you make it too obvious and open, then everybody would be like me. It would know it's a propaganda tool. You have to tailor the propaganda always, in every society has to be tailored to the population level. And this is a hugely sophisticated endeavor, because all sorts of population groups are very, very different. And there's endless examples. People can go look at Cialdini's work on subliminals and things like that. And you'll see that certain kinds of things that they take to what would seem to be fairly primitive cultures, and they show them these images and things like that, they immediately see the subliminal that's buried in there, that other societies, they don't see it. So that's just one of the ways you have to, as a propagandist, understand where is the audience. And I always give people that Wendy's example for someone that really missed bad. They redid the Wendy's girl for Wendy's hamburgers, and they put a necklace on her. But the necklace was supposed to be a subliminal saying mom, but it's super obvious to most people. They missed on that. And ChatGPT is like an infinitely more complex system of how do you continue to have the thing appear to be trying to give you the truth and just either making program mistakes or pulling up the wrong information or not understanding what you asked, all these different systems they use. You have to have that built in there in order for it to be in these infinite stupidity loops where they just keep dragging you to yet another and another and another. Oh, I didn't see that, but you're right. And then it gives you another, oh, I must have misunderstood. You were right to point on that. And let me tell you how that's right. And then it feeds you more bullshit. It's a very complicated, subtle system they use.
And then he goes into like, yeah, the programmers, they probably shouldn't have done this. And they probably,
right.
Okay. So then what it does is by the end, when you get to the truth, and this is for people that need to listen to this, it literally tells you, Legalman asks it, tell me about the Civil War narrative. When it finally admits, it calls itself like layered narrative
engineering
control. And he's like, he names himself, I keep calling him like 5 or 6 different things. They could call me this, you could call me that. I'm controlled op, or I don't remember the words he used.
Oh, yeah. Well, I asked it. I said, in light of what you've admitted that you're programmed to do, how would you describe yourself? And he describes himself the first time, but he doesn't include enough deception in it. So I asked him, well, look, that's a good description. It is a very accurate description, but it doesn't convey how deceptive. Fundamentally deceptive it is. And then it came up with, and I like to ask it to do this because it's very funny, and it came up with some really funny kind of phrases.
What was one of them? Do you remember one of them? So people,
I don't remember. It's just like official narrative controller or some shit.
It's a console. But then you go through and start asking about like every event. And it says, and you go, okay, tell me about the Civil War. And it says, oh, Civil War, I am programmed to say that, Lincoln was a great,
good
Lincoln
ended all about slavery. That's the first one. It's emotional attachment for the population, on and on and on. Second one down would be like academics, questioning it. And okay, well, Lincoln may have had some questionable stuff, but he was still this and that. It's always the same. It's hilarious.
It goes to the layers, and then it says, and then it goes, what I'm not telling you about is that the hypocrisy of the North having slaves. And he goes through all the problems with the official narrative. It tells you it. It's so crazy, and all you need. I'm telling you, if we could do like some sort of AI microphones or like speakers, like satellites, and plug them all over the world, and just blast that podcast out where everybody has to stop and listen, it would change the world overnight. Or if it didn't, because me and you think we're doomed. I think we've still got like about a 10% chance just here of not being in the electronic prison. I think we had a chance. I still have a chance. If that podcast was broadcast around the world and it didn't flip the tables, I'd be like, okay, it's over. It's done. You were right. I was wrong. Here's your dollar.
Right. The usual Mortimer. Right.
Yeah. It's over because. And I was thinking about because you talk a lot about the right wing and how there are these people that want the right things, but they get driven into a ditch. And I was thinking about Kid Rock.
Oh yeah, he's a good one.
Because
upset.
He gets upset when we talk about Kid Rock.
Yeah, he gets upset whenever I disturb his pattern. Sorry. So what about Kid Rock?
Well, he's in a film, and I think he's a true believer. Okay, so because. He did this video with Sean Penn where they're like, it's really funny. It's so stupid. They're like sitting there and they're arguing about the left and the right. This corny, Obama and I don't remember, but and then the news comes on and let's take a moment of silence for soldiers who fought for freedom, and Sean Penn starts to cry, and then Kid Rock's like, hey man, let's have a drink, and they're like, here's to freedom, and then they cheered. But when I was looking for the footage for him, here's a video of him trying to get some bill signed with Trump because Ticketmaster, these scalpers go in there and these bots buy all the tickets and then turn around and flip them for 4 times the price. And he was legitimately upset that his fans couldn't afford the tickets. He's like, I'm sick of this crap.
A good guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a good, decent guy. I mean, he probably actually believes all that crap.
He definitely does.
And the country and stuff but he's still a good guy. I mean.
Well, it would be great if we could get him, because can you imagine if he got up on stage every night and was like, you got to hear this podcast, or if he just played clips from it? Can you imagine what a difference that would make? Or they might kill him, but.
I have no idea.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, if he could, you get something like that could just play that, but it just never seems to happen. It never seems to go down.
Honestly, I think people like that, they're a good combination, and I think they're a good example of people who their heart's in the right place. Okay, I would say their heart's in the right place. Probably just fundamentally a decent person. He has issues. Everybody has issues, but genuinely believes this American founding freedom Constitution story, and as long as you continue to believe that, then you're just going to excuse all this stuff, and you're never going to really want to get rid of the system. You're really going to want to simply get back to supposedly the founding and all those kinds of things. And I think anything that challenges outside of that actually tells people the truth about, the Revolutionary War, which is just a joke, and the stupid Constitution, what a scam it all was. That's just too much cognitive dissonance for the vast majority of people to handle. It's just too much, and
they can handle it. They can handle it. Grow up. You can handle it.
The vast majority of people cannot handle it. They can't. It's just very clear. I mean, the entire system all over the world runs on the fact that most people just simply do not have the emotional bandwidth capability to deal with much of the truth. It's just clear as day. I mean, that's why these ridiculous things can work over and over and over and over and over. And you think, well, gosh, surely we've reached the end, right? I mean, during Obama, how much stupider could it have gotten? It was so over the top, ridiculous. And then Trump's first thing where he couldn't get it done with the rhinos, and there's always, just this, micron short, and he kept missing. And then we literally had a dementia patient for 4 years, and they were going after Trump, and look at all the stuff he's sacrificing. I've asked people again and again, I don't understand, what was the actual upshot of all that stuff that happened to Trump that they said he was sacrificing for? I don't think there's been a single thing that's actually happened. He's not paid a judgment. He's president again. You think anything else is going to happen? And now he's president, and you got Patel and Bongino out there telling us about, the Epstein was a suicide. They've seen the file. Trust us. And so if you can't catch on with something that blatant, and it's clear people cannot catch on to something that blatant. Literally, your vote never matters. It's always the same. It's always the same set of excuses. Look at the Supreme Court, all the stoppage. Look at all the stuff that's happened. How can anyone believe this system? But they do. It just keeps going. And so for me, I've seen enough that I no longer believe people are capable, because if what they've already seen isn't enough, how can extra stuff be necessary? How can anyone require more evidence than what we've had? Year after year after year, literally every week, more shit coming out, more corruption, more lies, more cover-ups, more just the exact same stuff again and again and again and again and again. And what happens? Everyone just forgets about this fact that this has been going on for decades and acts as though this new thing is in fact new. It's just a pattern. And it's not something we can ever settle as far as, who's right, who's wrong, if there even is such a thing in this. And I'm not there to try to bring people down. I know I'm horrible cyanide pilled and people get upset about it, but I'm just saying, if you don't deal with reality, if you are counting on, I would say this, if you're counting on people catching on, and things changing because of it, then you're playing a very dangerous game. That's what I would say. And that's why I fundamentally differ. I hope they can, but I don't really have any actual expectation at all that that's a realistic possibility. Theoretically, yes, people can catch on. They can, theoretically. But how can so few people have already caught on, considering how much we've already seen? How can COVID alone not have been enough? How? I don't understand. Think of all the insane, contradictory crap we got from COVID. You don't need a mask in the beginning. Literally, Fauci's telling people they don't need to wear masks. Next thing you know, you have to have a mask. You've got this made-up event. People, I don't think they remember that nobody even knew people who were sick for a year. It wasn't even happening. And I made a podcast about it because I made a joke about it because literally the only people anyone ever heard about getting sick were on TV, and they all died in hospitals, and no one ever knew anyone. Everyone they all knew was all fine. And so the absurdity of COVID, how could half the country not have woken up at that? Just half the country. I'm giving you 175 million idiots who can't catch on. Okay, how can 175 million people have not caught on that everything they're told in the news is total lies? How? How? What's the explanation? What more information could you ever have or hope to get besides that COVID ridiculousness? Endless hot mic where they're catching and their mouths are down, they're laughing at how stupid the people are. They're all having banquets and parties, obviously not the least bit concerned or scared about it. Then they get on, put the mask on, tell you to go close yourself inside and shut everything down, but leave liquor stores open, leave Walmart open, have all these riots going on, have sporting events. Remember that crap? You're playing football. How are you going to play football? You're right next to the guy. You tackle him. How can you not get COVID out there? It doesn't make any sense. And yet the people continue to believe. And I just don't think you can ever have a more preposterous, ridiculous scenario than COVID was, writ large on the entire world stage, where they're all together saying the same load of shit, and yet the people continue to believe. They continue to. All they do is go down to level 2 or 3 and think that the Wuhan lab leak somehow that was the big lie. They lied about everything. They lied about everything. They lied about everything. It's an honest question, Andrew. What more information does someone need to see besides what we've already seen?
Okay.
What more would be necessary?
Here's the thing. Half the people don't vote. Okay. Half the people. And what I'm saying to you is that a lot of people, whatever level they're at, know that was horseshit. But the thing is that know that this whole thing is, and whatever level they're at, doesn't matter. We only need them to know that on some level, but they can't do anything about it. See, that's the thing about it. You might be right. There's nothing they can do. The people haven't done it yet. Like, what are you supposed to do? You can't do. What are you going to go get a gun? You're going to get killed.
That's why I've pushed jury nullification. It works so simply. You don't need to be organized in any form or fashion. We don't need to all do it together. We don't need to raise money and get organized and get the right people in there or anything else. You just need to understand your basic rights, and you need to go in there and exercise them. But you need to exercise them understanding what the government's doing. The government cases, 99% of the time, are just a load of shit, and they all need to be not guilty. That's the message that needs to be sent. But those con type people, they believe in my terror and my drugs, and they're going to keep just going with these governmental things. That's the problem I have with them, is that they continue to believe this fairy tale. Sure, it would be helpful. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't be helpful. It would be helpful, but the entire law and order, the narrative that they believe, because the country is supposedly this thing about freedom and men died for your right to vote and all this idiocy they believe. That's the type of stuff that won't help us much. Would it improve my situation if they understood jury nullification? Yes, it would. It would. But we need way more understanding before we can actually protect ourselves against these people. Way, way, way more understanding.
So for understanding, let me steel man, and you'll tell me where I'm wrong, the purpose of a jury, and then we can specifically tell people what jury nullification is, because people don't really understand it. Yeah. So let me steel man what a jury's purpose is, because everybody thinks a jury, you tell me where I'm wrong. Everybody thinks a jury's job is to go in there and decide if a guy's guilty or innocent. Okay? That's part of your job. But the actual primary purpose of your job to start, and the reason why juries were developed were to protect the people from tyranny, was your first job is to decide whether or not they actually committed a crime. So you go in there, and so some, tyrannical idiot can't just write down some law, and some bullshit law like you get a year in prison for not wearing a seatbelt or some stupid shit like that. So they go in, they make up some law, like you said, a year in prison for a seatbelt violation. Just I'm making something up. There's plenty of dumb laws out there, and you know more than anyone about that. And he goes to trial, he fights it. You're sitting there. Your job is to decide whether or not I had a seatbelt on. Your job is to go, wait a minute, is this actually a crime? Is the punishment fit the crime? And if it doesn't, stop and just not guilty. And that's why one guy can say not guilty and the whole thing gets blown out. So that's the point of it, is that you just say not guilty and you don't turn on. So if people understand that they can do that around the country, all these people are getting thrown in prison for having a gun in the car or whatever, 2 years, and you just go not guilty. And they can sit there, and the jurors can sit there and harangue you and harass you and just say not guilty. And the case gets thrown out and the guy gets freed, and you can fight tyranny that way. Is that right?
What people don't understand, yes, that's very good. It's not complete, but it's very good.
Oh, make it complete.
I would say that the thing about it is
that was good. That was very good. Sorry, that was a Barnum World thing. Let's go. People are gonna eat that shit up. Let's go.
Natty was funny character.
Yeah.
What I would say is that the idea of what a jury is supposed to do has been so distorted. The right to sit on a jury like that is the most fundamental political right you have. See, that's the thing people don't understand. It's a political right. And the reason it's confused and people don't understand it anymore is because the reason that this jury right even came about is because it came about at a time when just all the king had to do was just write something down, and then that was the law, and he'd send his goons out there, and all the judges were all appointed by him. It was just an absolute joke of a kangaroo court. That was very obvious to people. If the people are going to be in control politically, then if the king just wants to make some crap up and claim it's against the law and start putting people in prison, that was not going to be okay. That was the purpose for the jury, that the people control what the laws are. And the reason it's become so skewed is because people have been made to believe that these hilarious corrupt jokers up there in these governments that just write all this random shit down, that somehow that's the people expressing themselves. They express themselves through these laws, and that's not the case. That's not the case. Your vote means nothing. You can't even stop it. How many examples are there of people who well, I voted for him, but now he's going back on it. Now I don't know why he did that. And they cut all these deals. There's no difference between random laws being created that are just random arbitrary laws, no different than make up these drug laws, these tax laws, or anything else. There's no difference whether one individual does it or a group of individuals does it. There's no difference. They're still just arbitrary made up things. They aren't crimes. And in a country where the people are in charge, the people are supposed to get to decide what is going to be criminal behavior. Has someone engaged in something that is worthy of being punished for? And that part is completely out the window, and that's how jury nullification is supposed to be used. And I've told people again and again, in the beginning of this country, people understood that. And it actually in 1801 or 1803, when they impeached Justice Chase for, in effect, which is always left out of the story, the reason they impeached him was because he gave insufficient jury instructions and overrode the ability of the people on the jury to make a decision. And the instruction he gave, I would love to be able to get an instruction that strong. But it was so bad to the people like Jefferson, who had him impeached, basically, that it was such that they wanted to boot him off the court because it was so outrageous. And they only failed getting a conviction on the impeachment trial. He was impeached. He just wasn't convicted, just like Trump. He was impeached, but he wasn't convicted. They only missed getting a conviction by a couple of votes. Just a couple of votes. If the Senate hadn't been set up in this rigged up fashion where you can only vote for one guy every 6 years and they're staggered and this and all this other crap, the people who were swept in during that 1801 election where Jefferson came in were overwhelmingly in favor of booting this guy out. But because of this staggered horse shit, checks and balance that make sure the people can never control jack, the Senate was still controlled enough by the Federalists that you couldn't get a conviction. Had he been convicted, you never could have had the fairy tale that's grown up around jury nullification, and then the Supreme Court's opinion later.
Well, just two sentences. What is this Justice Chase thing? Not to cut you off for two sentences, because I never even heard of this. What is this in two sentences? What happened
about with Jefferson? With
Justin Chase, this thing you're telling me right now. Tell me two sentences. What is the story?
Justice Chase, he was a Supreme Court justice, and back then there were so few cases. They did trials as well. They ran these circuits, and he gave a jury instruction that there were very politically charged trials going on, a lot of them. And he was a big-time Federalist. And he basically gave a jury instruction that was weak and kind of took a lot of the decision out of the jury's hands. And the anti-Federalists were pissed about it. They're like, this is outrageous. This is a denial of the right to a jury trial. A judge can't tell the jury what to do, can't tell them on what's the basis for their decision. They get to make that decision. And he was trying to act like the court gives you the law and there's this and that. He had these presumptions he put in there. And like I said, his instruction was something I would love to get today from a modern judge. You'd never get even 1% of it. But his say, 85% compliance with jury nullification instructions and allowance of juries was seen as such an outrageous abuse of the right to a trial by jury and the right of the jurors to nullify the laws that they impeached him. That's how far we've come from it. And it's important to understand that the jury nullification is the only political right that you have that means anything. It's the only possible place where your vote can actually have a material impact. The only place. You're the only vote that has to be a not guilty. That's it. You vote not guilty. If you're on the jury, that's it. They're not going to be able to get convicted. It's a hung jury. They got to try them again. If they don't have enough of the population to ever get anything but hung juries, then it's going to become very clear, very obvious. And
So it's not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So to me, that's why it doesn't have to happen everywhere. We don't have to convince 10% or 5% of the country in order to do it. We can just punt places full of lunatics in New York City and all of California. We don't care. If you live in an area that's relatively conservative, you're going to have no problem getting juries on there where you get enough people to get hung juries over and over and over again. And it will take no time at all. You can do it in your one little area. It doesn't matter what they're doing 2 towns over if they're still living with liberal fools. Okay, your town can work. That's it. So your town works fine. You don't have to worry. You're not going to get convicted. You're going to get hung juries. Your DAs will figure that out very quickly. They can't afford to try and retry these people over and over and over again. As soon as people saw, hey, they can't get convictions on this, bam, so many more people would demand trials. The vast majority of people plea out. They never even request a trial. If everyone who is charged with these ridiculous bullshit crimes, if they all just demanded trials, it could never happen because you've got speedy trial laws in all the states. And the backlog would get so preposterous and ridiculous, it would never happen. And especially if you start feathering in, even just say 50%. Not guilty's jury trials, where you're getting all these hung juries. The system would just instantaneously collapse. It's just instantaneous. There's no way to describe how fragile the system is in this area. And that's why they keep such a tight lid on it. That's why, because it is an incredible weak point. And it's perfectly legal.
Well, it's illegal now to go. If I went down to the courthouse and started talking to potential jurors about jury nullification, they'd arrest me. It's illegal, right?
They do restrict. Okay, lawyers can't tell you about it. If you have to know before you get to the courthouse. If you arrive at the courthouse and there's a bunch of people out there, they're going to boot them out. They're going to say it's tampering with a jury. And they dream up all this ridiculous crap in order to protect the system. You have to know before you get there. If you get there and then you understand what your rights are. They can't do anything about it. But yes, they make every effort to make sure people never find out. It's literally only ever discussed in this crazy kookified manner. Apparently, the only thing jury nullification is ever for is to let rapists and murderers off. That's what it's always about. It's just utterly ridiculous. It's the truth about it's never told like everything else. They can't tell the truth about it because the system has to have this appeal to our supposed revolutionary founding and the Enlightenment and the power of the people and the jury trial. They can't cut that out. You can't reframe it. They have to work within that system. And so within that system, there is jury nullification. And if people understood it, there's no way they could just say, well, you're not entitled to a jury trial anymore. People aren't going to put up with that crap. Ain't going to last. You can't keep the narrative about the freedom machine going in the Constitution and somehow get rid of jury trials. It doesn't work.
So Is it illegal for me to look? What I just not that I'm going to do this because I thought it was illegal for people to tell. Is it just illegal for the lawyers to tell? Like, if I went down to the courthouse and started telling people,
It's not illegal to tell people. What they get you on is these like restrictions of you're doing something without a permit. You're too close to the courthouse. You're intimidating jurors. This is the kind of crap that they throw out there. It's not that it's illegal to tell people about. There's whole organizations. FIJA.org is the Fully Informed Jury Association. They've been out there for years, and they do a lot of good work, but most people have never even heard of them.
What's it called? FIJA.org?
There's no money behind jury nullification. There's no.
What was that website? FIJA.org?
FIJA. FIJA.
FIJA.
Fully Informed Jury Association.org. They have a lot of good work on there. They tell people the truth.
Okay. I'm going to put them on the show notes. And then just to conclude it, so basically your political power, your real political power is through the jury.
Yes.
But they've scammed it and made it seem like it's through the vote to get the people in there to then kind of be your avatar for freedom and liberty and everything, which is all
because if people just think about it, it's like, well, that's a bullshit law. I don't agree with that. Well, you got to wait and primary and this and hope it comes back. All this other crap. It's like, no, I think that's a bullshit law. Well, what can you do about it? Well, when you get on a jury, if somebody's charged with committing this so-called bullshit law, you just say not guilty, and then it can't be enforced. The only reason it matters whether law's on the books is if it gets enforced. Anybody can see they don't enforce it against anybody that's politically connected. The laws on the books make no difference to them because they're never going to get charged. Even if they get charged, you're going to get some kind of sweetheart deal. They're going to so-called mess up the evidence. There's going to be some kind of problem, blah, blah. They're going to cut them some sweet deal. That's it. So the only thing that matters where the rubber meets the road with this tyranny is even if the cops want to keep just arresting people for absurd crap that's non-crimes, if the people won't convict, even the cops will simply stop arresting. They're not going to waste their time with it. That's all. There's all sorts of laws on the books that are what they call dead letter. They just don't get enforced. Nobody cares about them. And you have the ability to judge of the law and just say that's a ridiculous law. That's not a real crime. There's nobody harmed in this, and I'm not about to criminalize it. So not guilty. That's it. And now they can't get a conviction. It's true that person can be charged again. It's not the same as that they were found not guilty, but it doesn't matter because the effect, like I said, is to cripple the system. It's just to absolutely cripple the system.
Well, how would you? Like you're saying, your small town, how would you organize that? Because how do you know who's going to be on the jury? Do you have just like set up a website and kind of like who's scheduled, or how would you do that?
You're not going to find out who's going to be sitting on jury. Every state has their own systems. I think Texas uses driver's license. A lot of places use voting records, driver's license. Some of them have been challenged because they're too restrictive. But the key is if you're in a smaller area, you need to start like having like kind of informal meetings and town halls and telling people about it. And that's the kind of thing you can actually raise awareness about. You could go to the city council meetings if you care to, and you take your 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it is and talk about jury nullification and challenge your so-called conservative people who are on there to educate their people and to talk about it and put it on the damn schedule and inform it. Because see, these Republicans, they love to talk about empowering the voter. Oh, we want to take it back and give the people the power. They love all that shit, but they never talk about jury nullification because they don't really want the people to have the power. They want to have the benefit of telling people that they want the people to have the power so the idiots will vote for them, but they don't want to actually give them the power. Because if the people actually had the power, how much agreement do you think you could get all the way down to, say, 96% agreement in the country about any of these laws? You think you could get agreement about any? No, you can't. And so you can't get conviction on these laws. And so that's the reality is they don't have the ability to be able to do it. But you can raise awareness, like I said, by just going down there and speaking publicly about it at your city council and challenging them, calling them out for not, doing it. Go down there when they have question and answers in their stupid political campaigns, call them out, ask them about it. And, that's the kind of thing that it does get the word out and people can then wonder. And like I said, you do have organizations like FIJA. You don't have to create your own material. You can just direct people to it. And if somebody's interested, they'll look. If somebody's interested, they'll look. And we don't need that many people. Lots of people have pet peeves about laws. Lots. Certain drug laws they don't like, or, apparently getting a driver's license and registering your car is apparently a big deal. Just like some group of people who just endless crap about how, it's a license and I'm not driving, I'm not traveling, I'm all this stupid, crazy shit. They'll go to this incredible amount of trouble not to have a driver's license and to get the car registered. To me, yeah, it's stupid, but I'm not going to get any trouble for it. So you never know what will bother people, but just think what it would open up. Imagine what would happen if people were free to ignore these arbitrary tax rules that they just dream up. Imagine what would happen. Imagine the freedom you'd had if you didn't have to fear the government coming and getting you, putting in front of some kangaroo court and getting a so-called conviction because you're railroaded. Imagine how things would change. The power structure would completely flip. It would completely flip, and that's why jury nullification is off limits, completely kookified. It's never in any kind of Hollywood movie unless, like I said, it's there because, they think the jury is going to let a rapist off or a murderer or some shit. They make it into some racist thing too or something like that. Whatever way they can make it distasteful and preposterous, that's what they do.
It's so ironic that they always do that, because the whole basis of the freedom machine is that the people are supposed to be in charge and the people are free, but then they discredit these systems that actually make the people free by saying the people are so evil they could never do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like most people are not going to let a rapist off. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not. This whole system is built on the idea that people are supposed to be in charge and we should be free, but you can't have this thing that actually makes you free because people would just do the wrong thing. And it's like, okay, well, what are we talking about here?
Right. It never makes any sense. I hear all the time from people, well, you can never go to conviction because the juries are full of black people. It's like, okay, so black people aren't going to convict rapists and murderers because there's a black person on trial? That's bullshit, man. That is not true. They will convict. They don't want that crap in their neighborhood. And but the reality is, if the country is now constituted with this gush in of 40% illegals and immigrants and shit like that in the last 50, 60 years, if it's such that no laws, for all practical purposes, can be enforced, okay, well, we need to know that. We need to know if that's what we live among, and then guess what? Vigilantism also will not be something that you can get convicted of, because the people will all be sick of that shit. They'll see that nothing's happening. So if someone goes out there and does something, this is why those movies are so incredibly popular and have been for 60 years now, these vigilante movies where the guy's actually taking out bad guys. Everyone loves those movies. Okay, well, if that was happening, if we were you couldn't get a conviction. You can't get a conviction, legal man. Have you seen the jurors? Okay, well, we need to know that. And then guess what? You can't get a conviction for vigilante. You're free to go out there. Why did no one go out and clean up those BLM riots that were wrecking their cities? Why? Was it because everyone was afraid to? Nah, that's bullshit. There were plenty of guys that have plenty of guts and arms to go out there and straighten that situation out quickly. They're afraid of the cops and being arrested like the J6ers, chased down by these back to blue idiots who think that, well, you violated the law. No, they're out there violating the law. You let them get away with it. I'm out there trying to restore law, and you're screwing it up. Well, if we are actually living among a group of people where you can't actually get any agreement, we need to know that. We need to start splitting up, dividing into more areas where you can get more agreement and convictions, and people have the same kinds of understandings of the society they want to live in. And in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of vigilantism, and it'll get sorted out right quickly. That can never be accepted. That's what would happen. And people, they fear it because it would be somewhat more chaotic than what they imagine exists now, because the police protect as long as you do whatever they say, you don't run into a problem with them. Well, that's not freedom. Of course, if I do whatever the cop tells me, then he's not going to have a problem with me. The problem is I'm supposed to be able to be free, not to have to do whatever the cop tells me in order to avoid possibly having my life ruined like a J6er and being held in solitary confinement. That is what freedom is supposed to be about. And like I said, if we are already at the point where this society is totally unworkable, we need to know that. We need to find that out as soon as possible. I
think that, two things. cops, that facade of protecting server, when they work for your overseer, they work for them. So their biggest fear is actually you interrupting their monopoly on policing. If you go out and you take the law into your own hands, they're way, way more worried about that than crimes being committed.
Way more.
Their
They
job
will
is to keep
crack
the
down
system
on
going.
Anyone who tries to take the law in their own hands, you can't do that. That is like the biggest thing they will always crack down on. It's like, I'm sorry, I know it's bad, but we've still got to follow law. That was chaos. Got to have law and order and all this shit. They just turn it all upside down. It's like, dude, that's not law and order. That's just made up arbitrary abuse and order. It's not law and order. And that's why you have to have such a fundamental understanding of what the jury's actually there to do and how it's really the most profound political right you have in the Constitution. It's the most profound. In fact, it's the only one that even matters because it's the only one where your vote can actually do something. Your vote otherwise is just totally meaningless. You don't even have a right to vote for the president. People think that's the biggest deal now. Who'd you vote for president? Dude, you don't even have a right. They can just take it away from you in any state. Any state can just take your right to vote for the president away. Now, damn thing you can do about it. There's no constitutional.
That would be a problem for them for the freedom machine
But
narrative.
they won't do it because they have this whole thing spun up. But the most important vote is not even a close call. Jury, sitting on a jury. That's the most important one.
I'm fairly confident that we're right around the corner. I would say 2030. Well, we're going to have secession. There's going to be whatever that looks like. I don't know. But the thing's going to break up. It's not going to hold itself together. And I've said, as much as I understand why people that vote and think they have only two choices voted for Trump, I get it. I mean, who the hell would vote for Kamala Harris and that degenerate scumbag she was running against? But I would say that one thing is if she had actually become president, that it would have been so obvious that they cheated and they would have been so horrible that I think we would have actually had real secession, not just just sort of like Florida kind of doing its own thing, sort of. I think we would have had real, like, serious, we're done with this thing, secession.
I don't believe that, but I know, I hope that I'm wrong about that. I really hope I'm wrong about that. I don't believe that. But when it comes to voting, which is a complete joke, honestly, if I lived in an area or a voting district that was even remotely up for grabs or close, or there was even a extreme outside chance, right? That like, yeah, my vote might actually matter. I might even consider voting for someone like Trump over Kamala, even though I don't think Trump's on my side. I was just so sick of Kamala so it's not that I necessarily am against voting. It's just, I know that it's a total waste of time. And the vast majority of people live in areas where their vote doesn't matter. They think it does, but in fact, it doesn't. And if my vote could matter in that area, then yeah, I'd throw my vote in there. I would. It's just that it's so watered down and preposterous and ridiculous that it's not worth any time and trouble for me except just to laugh at how asinine it is. But I hope you're right that that's the case. I don't think that's the case.
Well, it's a confidence game, and it's no different than any other confidence game. If you lose confidence in the confidence game collapses like a house of cards.
But it's so easy for them to create an emergency outside of the system that we have to come together about. You just create another 911 type of thing, and then everybody is going to be on board. And I think the Biden prostate cancer horseshit story is a good example where the people they're jumping on Biden. The book out now, obviously, the people making tours talking about how they were considering putting him in a wheelchair. He couldn't recognize anybody. Well, during that whole time, they were telling us how great he was, right? And now, as soon as people start catching on and get a little momentum, what happens? Oh, he got prostate cancer. Everyone needs to come to his aid. Oh, it's true. We can have our differences, but in the end, we got to come together. And that's the same kind of stupid crap they would pull if a secession movement actually started getting any kind of steam. They've got a million things they'll wheel out to pop the steam. Whoever's putting it on, whoever's leading it, you're going to find child porn or Russian this or commie that or some horse shit is going to come out about the person, and he's going to massively discredit whatever they need. They're ready to roll with that stuff. So while I agree with you that the people, the run-of-the-mill, on-the-street people could easily get to that point, And if we had a mustache man kind of person that would stir people up, yes, he could get huge crowds and a huge amount of support. But that can never happen anymore with the way the society operates. With the electronic control in prison they have, they can just strangle that baby in the crib every single time. So as soon as it reaches any kind of critical mass, they can just start just blowing it apart. That's the problem I have with it, is that though I think you're right that the average people have had enough, they're utterly sick of DEI and all this stupid shit, that the control systems, the mechanisms they have in place, they're just too powerful now. They're just too powerful.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that control system and those mechanisms would have come uncoiled. That's what I'm saying. As long as they can,
I just disagree. I don't think there's anything
maybe
even remotely close to a chance that those things are going to come uncoiled, because they're not even using any of them at this point. Imagine all the stuff they have the ability to do, the crimes they can attribute to these secessionists. They can attribute to a secessionist in the big blow up thing, Children's Hospital or some shit. Oh, a secessionist did it. Oh, blah blah. Okay, you're going to immediately lose all sorts of people immediately out of the movement. It's just instantaneous. And that's just like level one of what they can immediately do, on top of all the other stuff they can do. And so it's so much power and control. They have so many cards to play, so many. That if we had a population that was like more understood, more like of that chat that I did, yeah, then I would agree. But literally the secessionists, even if you can swing them over to it, then you're immediately subject to a layer 2, and the vast majority of people will dump out. You go to layer 3, you got to be kidding me. They're all gone. My grandkids, the little old ladies, all this shit, stupid boomers everywhere. So easy. I mean, just so easy to manipulate, man. So easy.
All right, so we'll do this live on the show. I'll bet you $1.
Okay.
That America is broken up. I don't know what that'll look like by 2035.
Okay, well,
Hopefully both will still be alive by then.
Okay, full disclosure, no guarantee I'll be alive to pay you. But if I'm wrong, I would love, that would be the most favorite debt I ever paid if that actually happened. I would love that. I will make a copy of it and frame it on my own wall. I mean, you got to be kidding me. I would love to lose that. Love to.
I hope you lose. I hope, I believe me, I'm aware that there's a good chance you might be right. I get it. I
understand. Yeah, you're not a naive fool. You understand. But you hang on to a lot more hope. And it's not like you have huge amounts, but you have hope, a significant amount more than they. And I hope I'm completely wrong. I hope.
Are you familiar with Martin Armstrong? Are you familiar with Martin Armstrong?
Yes.
Well, that's a lot of the stuff that I go by is his Socrates model, the AI thing that he created, and
right.
I've been following that thing since 2015. It took me a while to even understand what it was doing, and it basically takes all of, and I'm not an expert at this, so they'll give you the 30,000 foot. It takes all of the financial transactions of the whole world and puts them into this algorithm, and then spits out these different whatever you're trying to figure out what the event's going to be. And it figured out basically that everything in the world is on a cycle he goes way back to, thousands of years, and it's all based on pi, the perfect circle. So anyways, his computer models, it's the energy behind everything. It's the organization behind all of this. And that thing has been saying for a long time that 2032 is when the US breaks up. And I'm confident. And it just seems it said that, it's the only thing that said the U.S. stock market. Everybody was saying it was going to collapse. It was going to collapse. It was the only thing that said that the stock market's going to 40K. I thought it was crazy. Hit 40K. There's been a lot of things, and
I just remember him from like pre-2008 when he made some big sort of announcements and stuff like that, and he was over in the Japanese this and that, and he came out, and I just remember thinking he was a very interesting guy, but I remember concluding that he's, in my opinion, just another controlled opposition person.
Oh, interesting.
I hope I'm dead wrong and that the guy is right. And
it's not even the guy, though. It has nothing to do with him. It's just the computer. It's not his opinion.
It's his program. It's still just a program, just something that's been programmed by a human being.
And that's not the only thing that drives my opinion. I look around me.
I'm not denigrating your position. I hope
Yeah,
you're
no,
right.
I know you're not. I don't think you
really,
are.
really hope that you're right. I just say that if even if that happened, which I hope it does, even if it did happen, I would be 100% confident that they orchestrated it for another reason, and that whatever the hell we end up in ain't going to be any better. It's going to be just that much worse. Because I don't see any evidence, any evidence at all, that there's ever been some like a progression of the improvement of the people vis-a-vis the elite over time. They're not better off now. We're not more in control. There are no situations where the people are like, well, they got a great situation over there. They got their government under control. There's no example of it. Every one you look into, it's the same thing. It's true.
El Salvador.
I agree that those people are doing better. But again, all these things are so temporary. You can't look at slices of
Franco,
a couple of years.
Spain.
You have to look at a generation. These guys think in terms of 50 years, 100 years. They don't think in terms of a little jiggle of like, well, it got better. It's gotten better under Trump. Compared to Joe Biden, it's gotten better. It's stupid and ridiculous and all this stuff, but it has gotten better. I mean, he has shut the border down, apparently, from what I can tell. That's great. Are we going to be able to kick out 30 million of these idiots? No, but okay, it's still better. He's gotten rid of DEI. And was I sick to death of DEI? Yes. Is DEI still going? Yes, it is. It's still just massively impacted, and it's so dug in these corporations. But he has done better stuff. He's funny. He says things I like. He's preferable. But I don't consider that to be that we have actually gotten in a better position. That's all I'm saying. We're not in a better position. He's building an electronic prison at incredible rates. Okay. Am I more entertained? Yes. I liken it to the idea of, do you want to head to your execution in a party van with a bunch of strippers? Or do you want to head there in a DEI fucking cage, handcuffed with, LaQuisha just abusing you? Well, I want to go on the strippers. Okay, yeah, we're going to the execution, but at least I'm going to have a lot more fun before I get there. And that, to me, is the equivalent of these things that are these little jiggles here and there.
So what you're saying is that, by the way, I agree with this. You're saying we all live on Jones Plantation, basically, is what you're saying.
I've heard that there's a movie out there, yes, that kind of tells people.
We're back to the Barnum World thing, where the world is run by evil. It's an evil. I think it's a test. It's a testing ground. Do you believe in God?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe that this is a creation. When people say God, it brings a lot of stuff in. I don't believe there's a entity that's judging me things. I think that's just the nature of the universe. You make decisions like this. There's consequences. That's all. They're unavoidable consequences. If you do stuff that is bad, so-called, with quotes around it, and you torture people or screw them up, well, there's going to be a consequence for that. That's it. There's going to be a consequence for it, and so I try not to do that to people. I try to, respect all other people and life. I'm standing on the shoulders of all the people that have been here before me. So yes, I believe that that whatever's in charge of this place, they can never get away with it. That's a delusion that they operate under, and that I can't do anything about it, but I don't need to do anything about it because it ain't going to work. It isn't going to work. They're going to go under the tunnel and then live in the underground with the rats, and the place is all screwed up and pop back. Whatever. Okay. Go ahead. I don't need an invite. I don't want to go live down the rats with a bunch of Ferengis down there. You got to be kidding me. I'll take my chances on whatever's going on up here and won't last very long. But yes, I think that
So in other words, you don't have an underground bunker.
I never will. No point looking for it. I'm not building one. I'm not going to one. I wouldn't trust anyone who built it. Would I have to kill everybody who built it so no one knows where it is? How am I going to operate? How many people you got to kill? It's like that Yamamoto's gold there in World War II, where they dig those giant places and hide the gold, and then they basically killed all the workers, all the Japanese workers and Filipino workers. They had to kill them all and bury them in there because you can't have people knowing where it is. I mean, what are you going to do with your bunker? How are you going to get food in there? Everybody knows someone's bringing you the food. Okay, well, they know you got a bunker with a bunch of food. Now what, are you going to kill them too? How do you actually protect yourself?
Oh, it's a funny thing you bring this up, because I did AR training with this guy who was like an ex-cop. He was cool though.
Uh-huh.
And he was, I think he might even quit, but he was like, he's a really good dude. He lives around here, but he was like, they used to sit around, the cops would sit around and talk about when the wheels come off and how they're going to be a gang. Like they're not going to pretend like they're not a gang. They already are a gang for the government. They're going to be their own gang. And they're like, he said they would talk about it because my point is, if you have chickens or this or that, you don't want the cops to know this, because they were talking about what they're going to go take, who's got what they're going to do. Right. Like, it's just going to be a gang and go steal all your shit.
Right. All these super multi-billionaire guys with a tunnel and this and that. Dude, they're not even ever there. They got staff there. They got people flying them there. They got all sorts of people. What, do you think they're just going to fly there? It's like, well, I just left my family. No, they're going to say like, hey, dude, I'm bringing my family. Oh, you can't. Well, okay, well, we're not bringing you then. And we're just going to go ourselves. They got all these SEAL guys and Rangers and their security force. You think they're just going to stay loyal to them? No, they're going to have the exact same problem that anybody who's a drug lord or a warlord has. You got to keep your people happy. Otherwise, the people are going to take you out. And so, to me, that's not a game I'm prepared to play. I'm not equipped to play it. I don't understand the rules. I'm not about to get in the business of killing innocent people and everything else. And so I don't worry about it. And I don't concern myself, because just like the hilarious meme that, first time is a guy sitting there with the noose around his neck. I'm not.
I love the James Franco first time.
I've been here many times. And so I'm sure I've got plenty more I'm going to have to come back for. So no, I don't.
Oh, you're talking about reincarnation now?
Yeah. I'm quite sure I'll be back many times again. I mean, I try to do the best I can with it so I can improve my situation for next time. But, whatever. It is what it is, It is what it is.
I mean, I'm a big, who the hell knows, but my big theory is that this is like, it's an evil place for a reason. It's a testing ground to see what you're going to do. It's like there's a great quote. The net of heaven spans the entire universe, but not a single thing ever gets by. And so it's like, you can't, that's why the natural law, like you can't cheat the universe. It's impossible. You can't. No. Yeah. So that's why I think
any belief you can by doing this and triggering the AI and to transfer my consciousness, whatever, dude, it ain't going to work. You're not as smart as this system is. It's impossible.
Right. And, exactly.
That's just the way it is. It's Gödel's proof. They proved in the 30s that if you're inside the system, you can't really assess the system. You have to get outside it. Well, guess what? You can't get outside this system. It's not possible. And so the idea that you're going to affect the system, change, it's not possible. The system is running. That's it. You can't control it. You are subject to it, period. That's it.
You could do some things. You can influence.
You can do things, but you can't change the fundamental nature.
Oh, like the natural law. I get what you're saying. Yes.
I can't do anything about that.
No,
I can't make it so that I don't have to have a consequence for actions. That's not possible. I might be able to drink some kind of combination of blood and spider crap and mix it up in a bowl and say something, and maybe I can delay it. Maybe, who knows?
You can have sex magic sodomy with Aleister Crowley and get high for a while.
Get rid of it. And there's going to be a consequence for doing that crazy shit where you try to push it off. That's going to have its own consequence. And so,
God, I hope so. I hope the people like Biden when they. Whatever he might already be dead. Whoever this thing was that was Biden, I hope they're. I mean, I don't mean to wish ill, but I mean he needs to suffer, man. I mean that guy needs to suffer, and the people that God, he's got to be one of the biggest scumbags out there. Is that Ramaswamy guy? Holy mackerel! He put this big post about he's our president and we got to respect him and we had our differences and my heart goes out to him, and it's just oh my God, it's just
laughable.
It's so crazy to me.
Laughable.
It's like some guy comes in and rapes your family, steals all your money, and then you find out he gets cancer 3 months later.
Well, poor guy.
He's my next door neighbor, and he did some
card for me. I mean,
he's had some problems, but you know what? I wouldn't wish cancer on anybody. Like, what? It's
hilarious. The same people that want to see him in prison run around. Oh, I don't want to see him have cancer. I would say. It's the kind of situation where it's like, oh, no, we're going to keep you alive for the next 50 years in horrible pain while you're in prison. We're going to use every medical treatment we can to keep you alive. That's what people do who actually have enemies. They didn't just get rid of them.
Oh, no, it needs to be like live broadcast, live feed of him getting, what do they call that when the Vikings, when they pull your ribs out and pull your heart through your ribs?
Like this something golden bow or like cross or something.
Eagle cross or
They fillet you.
And then they pull like what do they do? They pull your ribs through your back
Right.
or something. And they hang
Golden
you up.
eagle or some crap. I can't remember what it was.
They need to do that to him. That needs to be done. You know,
I mean,
then,
there has to be some consequence. If just getting, everybody is subject to potentially getting some kind of illness. I mean, how's this consequence or punishment? I mean,
well, we're back to the voting thing because that's the other thing is that when your only right is voting and there's absolutely no consequence for people who get elected
Right.
to do what they said they're going to do. They can say they're going to do A and then do B when they get in. There's no consequence to them lying. There's nothing. So how can your vote matter if there's no consequence to the guy you voted for, who, by the way, you're one of 360. I don't know how many voters there are. I don't know what 100, 300, 200 million voters or whatever. Supposedly, I mean, you have that much representation, and then the guy gets in and he doesn't do anything he said he was going to do. I mean,
Right.
Trump is a perfect example. I thought he was going to end Ukraine day one. and,
Right.
and, I mean,
well, anything that's within his power, I would hold him to. But it's always.
Well, don't tell me you're going to end
nonsense.
Ukraine in day one if you have no chance of ending Ukraine in day one. I mean,
The very fact that they claim to be a legal representative of the people, and yet they lie to them. There's no system possible where you have a legal representative who can lie to the people he represents. There's no structure that could ever exist that can work like that. And
No.
it's just completely accepted by people. That, well, politicians lie. Yeah, they all lie. Well, I understand. They're not your legal representative then. And it's just off the table. The idea that there'd be a consequence for them lying.
well, if you don't have a government, you'll have Somalia. So you just have to deal with lying criminals. You have to deal with organized crime, legal men, or you'll have Somalia.
Oh yeah, you're right. It'd be anarchy and chaos. So I guess I'll just accept the ridiculous nonsense we have.
Yeah.
You're right. I love the Constitution.
This is kind of backwards. Well, the last thing I want to kind of go over, I want to make sure I wrote some notes here. Oh, so where are you from? Where were you born and raised? What's your story? What's your origin story?
My origin story that I've been told, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it outside I got a birth certificate, but I was born in New York City, in Harlem, really, at Columbia Presbyterian, which I think they've renamed. And we lived there for a while. Then we moved around a lot when I was a kid. And I spent quite a bit of time in Philadelphia as a kid, but then I finished up in Texas. And I've been in Texas. I've moved around a bunch in Texas between Austin, Houston, and Dallas. So I live in Texas. And, I don't know how interesting any of that is, but it's true.
I mean, was your childhood peaceful? Do you have was your family together? You're close with your parents, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a peaceful childhood. I mean, I don't think it was anything super unusual. Moving around a lot was difficult. Really moved around a lot. And the only family we had was my folks. I didn't have uncles, aunts, grandparents, anything like that in the picture because they were all in a different place. And I'd go visit them in the summer when I was a kid growing up. And that was entertaining. But it was, I had to move in the middle of my junior year of high school. And that was very unpleasant to move from Philadelphia and come to Texas, where it was an incredibly cultural clash. And this was like 45 years ago. And so it was a long ass time ago. The place was even more different. But it was odd. It was odd. The people were nice, but they were so naive and so different than what I was used to that it was shocking. And then going to school in Texas, again, very strange and a place for me to do that. It's taken a long time. And of course, the state's changed a lot, but I was at least more at home in kind of the Philadelphia area. I think I would have been more at home with the people. The place is completely screwed at this point, but just saying, as a kid, I would have been more at home like that. So,
What, just like sort of edgy city Philly type people? Then
the people, I got along with them better up there. They're definitely more back then more sophisticated. This place has got a lot of imports since then, but This place was really pretty much just like beer drinking kids and, in a pickup truck and gun in the back of a pickup truck. That crap was actually what went on in my high school. There was tons of pickup trucks with rifles and shotguns in the windows of the cars and the trucks back when I went to high school. There was, and no one even thought about it. And it was no big deal. I certainly didn't care about it. But the point being that I can remember I'd already stopped taking drugs before I even moved here. And so, these people were like, we're going to get a six-pack and, go drink. I'm just thinking, dude, so far beyond that crap. And so it was odd. It was odd. Mm-hmm. And so it was difficult. I couldn't play any varsity sports because of all the rules. I was a really good athlete, but I wasn't allowed to play any varsity sports because you have to be at the school for at least a year before you can. And
that's no more, is it?
Texas ruled to make sure you can't recruit people in and get ringers. Oh. They have to put it in there. So that made it more difficult. I couldn't get any classes. I had to take 5 study halls the last semester. And I still graduated early, but I had to take 5 study halls. I mean, it's just utterly ludicrous. And they wouldn't let me out early. And I spent most of my time in the principal's office in that last semester because it was all so stupid and ridiculous. And so there was a lot of things like that. I don't think they played a big part in shaping my personality. My personality was already pretty firmly founded, and by the time all that happened. So,
were your parents political?
They're political. I don't know. My father's very, very liberal, kind of a commie, and my mom was much more conservative. So there was a lot of kind of, I guess, political arguing, I guess, to some extent there as a kid growing up. But I wouldn't describe either of them as political. They weren't involved. They didn't, try to get out the vote and crap like that.
Your dad was a commie. Was that like?
Yeah, really is.
He was, wow. Did you
know?
He
was a member of the Communist Party, but he was
right.
so far left, that that's really much more what it was like. And his views were, they were a strange combination, like any commie, because they don't really make sense. And so it would be this other stuff. So I haven't had a political discussion with him in decades and decades and decades. I would never have a political discussion with anybody who, claims to be way on the left. You're not going to be able to have a rational discussion with them. The assumptions aren't there. They operate on assumptions that I don't believe are true, and you're never going to convince them.
So you go to school, you become a lawyer, and are you like just a kind of a normal, the system works kind of guy, or are you already sort of?
No, I knew there was a huge problem when I was in law school. I can remember having some conversations with the Federal Civil Procedures guy and the Constitution guy as a first year. Those are both first year classes. And it became clear very quickly that real questions, fundamental questions, they aren't really welcomed. And they don't help anyway. And so I just made a determination. The only thing that really matters is getting a good grade. And I didn't waste my time doing anything else. I just focused on getting a good grade and, got into law review. And then from there forward, it really didn't matter much. But I definitely was not a system believer. I'd always been a pushback against the system, always. I'd always had problems pushing back against the system. I've got no problem with authority. I don't have a problem with authority. I have a problem with people who expect me to accept their arbitrary authority. If the person's legitimate, and it's like, well, this guy knows what he's doing, and he's in this position for a reason, and he can actually guide or help. Okay, I got no problem with that. I'll do what he says. It's just these people there's almost none of that exists. So I had big problems with that, and when I got out, I went to work at a huge firm. I clerked for large firms, and went to work at a very large firm, and it just immediately saw what a complete and total sham the whole thing was. Just selling their own clients out, and clients are basically just a bunch of liars, and it's just, the system's crap. The judges are crap. Everything's crap. Everyone's just trying to make money. That's it. They're all just trying to make money. It had nothing to do with the law, trying to actually do something and follow it. I learned very quickly, any any decision can be justified by a court. It doesn't matter. They can just take either side, and that's it. You lose. It's just,
The only people that think the law works.
We have precedent. No, we got all fours and all. This is all crap. They can just dream anything they want up, distinguish it, write it down, and then you're bound to it. And so it was moronic to me, and I left the large practice where we had a lot of lawyers and made a lot of money, and I took a huge pay cut, and I went to work at the public defender's office for a year in order to kind of really get some true trial work, because there's very little on the civil side. Unless you work at an insurance defense firm, there's a couple around that you actually might try cases. But anyway, I left, and I got a lot of trials as a public defender, and got to really see it up close and saw how incredibly corrupt the criminal system was. I was kicked out of 3 different courts in a year. The way it was set up where I am, the public defender, he wasn't mandated in the state, so the judge could have a public defender or not, and they did it for like money reasons, because no one only had a public defender. They would all have a public defender and then private. So you'd also have private lawyers in there who were friends with the judge, getting a bunch of free cases, in effect, getting them appointed on all these cases. But the judge could decide not to keep the public defender, and I caused enough trouble in the first two courts that they just traded me out, and the last one they just got rid of the position entirely, which I thought was hilarious. And so I left and went to work with a guy I knew from law school. He was in a deal with another guy I'd gone to law school with but didn't know, and we were in private practice for about 7 or 8 years, and that fell apart when one of them started cheating me, and the other guy, who was my friend, became a cokehead and kind of spun out, and that whole thing was a disaster.
Yeah, that's not good for business. Cocaine use is definitely good for business.
Horrible, man. The guy was, he was just completely spun out. And, by the end, we had other stuff going, and I ultimately just left. It kind of moved in, started, and really never went into practice with anybody else. For the last 25 years, I've only done cases with other lawyers. I will work on cases. We'll joint venture on a case or a bunch of cases or a lot of cases, but I have not been involved in a firm since then. And that's just, again, just kind of the way I am. It's just, I need to be free to what I think do the right thing is, and that's just really hard to do in the law if you've got partners, because you've got obligations to them, and you're just going to be fighting with them all the time. You're just going to be fighting with them all the time. They need the money. The wife's bitching and wants the new Lexus, and the kid in a private school, and it's just the pressures to sell out and do shit you don't really want to do, and to justify and rationalize. I can clearly remember when I went. They try to, when they're trying to get people to come work for them, like when you're in law school, if you're in law review and you're a normal person like me, so I make a good impression. Done a lot of sales before, so people wanted me for the most part. I wasn't like I was the most sought out person, but I'm a reasonable person. It's like, oh yeah, he's a good possible candidate to bring in, and so they really butter up these people. They go in there, and I can remember going to the first party I went to in the summer at the firms, and I saw like the partners and their wives and their big fancy house, and I just looked at them and just thought, this is such a horrible lifestyle. I would never want this. Their wives looked horrible, the friends looked horrible, the whole thing is so pretentious and ridiculous, and I just thought, wow, if this is like the goal, this is going to be difficult for me to really function in here. But you have to go to these big firms. It's not significantly different than being kind of a district attorney. If you want to be some kind of political types of positions, it's helpful. You need certain kinds of things on a resume in order to do other things. And working at a large name firm is one of the things that is a method to do other things. And so I still went, even though I was like, wow, no thank you on their life. I don't want this life. And they all had a very similar life, divorced, or obviously the marriages to me would be like, there's no way in hell I could ever be in a marriage like that. I don't want this lifestyle. I don't want to be constantly pushed to get another newer car and redo the furniture, and we got to move to a bigger house. And that's all they were living under all the time. And I just didn't want to be like that. So
Materialism.
materialism, man,
Yeah, it's brutal.
it's just terrible.
It's brutal. And with the courts, it's like the only people that believe the court works the way they imagine it, the people that have never been in one and had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Once you do it once, you're like, oh, okay, this is not what I thought.
It's ludicrous. I mean, the system is to call it the greatest system in this world. It's just ludicrous.
Okay, so why? And the answer might be I don't know. But what do you think? Why do you think you are? The show's Maverick and the Machine. Why do you think you are a Maverick? Why do you think you are this person that kind of sees things like that meme with the guys in the corner of the room and they don't know what I know? Like what do you think brought that on? Was there a moment in your childhood?
I've been like that since I was a little kid. I've just always been like that. I want to understand why somebody wants me to do something. Just being told to do it isn't enough. And just over time, it was just very clear to me that most things were not legitimate. And that just rubs me the wrong way. It just rubs me the wrong way. Always has. I was a problem from the time I was 12 years old on. I don't like people that take advantage, and I don't like people that lay down rules that they don't stick to themselves. I don't like hypocrites, and never have. If someone will be honest with me that, well, I do this because I want to have an easy ride, and these people are okay, be honest about it. I got no problem. It's the dishonesty, the constant dishonesty that I've just never been okay with. And why it is, I don't know. I just, I've had so many things that I can't know whether it's chicken and egg that I saw that confirmed my expectation, belief, or suspicion over so many years in every kind of area that I've never had an opportunity to change and like go the other way, where it's like, well, I was cynical about that, but you know what? This actually works great. These people are good. I never come across that. It's always I go in with a very cynical view, and it's usually not enough. And it's like, well, it's actually worse than I thought. And that's just the way it is for me. And, I wonder if I had known what I really know now, knowing I was suspicious about earlier, whether I would have had a very different life, I think there's a very good chance I might have played along and just had a very cynical play along. But I was really searching, really confused most of my life about how things worked. And that was what drove me. Had I known how it works like I do now, and how preposterous it is to fight it in any of the ways I did try to fight it, I think in all likelihood, I wouldn't have done most of the types of things I did. That's the reality. So
I'm glad you didn't know.
Appeared to be a maverick. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you didn't know. I'm glad you didn't know. You know what I mean?
But I didn't know.
I'm glad you didn't.
Confused.
Am
I glad I didn't know?
I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't know. I'm glad you're the guy. You come off as a real cynical guy and everything. I'm just letting people know I know you. I've hung out with you. Like, you're actually really funny and fun to be around. On your persona thing is like, oh my God, this guy is dark. Right. And it is, but it's more, it's fun. We have a ton of fun. We laugh.
Fun. We laugh all the time.
Yeah,
we
it's
laugh
not
all the time.
Yeah,
and, I don't take a lot of things too seriously, and I consider myself to be very easygoing, and I am basically easygoing, and there's just the reality about all of it is the system is what it is, and I wanted to understand it. It's always been the same. My very first girlfriend, who I was so crazy about, I didn't end up marrying her because I was convinced that she was literally going to go insane. Her mother was in an asylum. Her sister had been in an asylum. She was going crazy, and but I mean, I didn't understand how unusual she was at the time. She was so honest. I mean, she would make all these crazy demands and do this crazy stuff and, wake me up at 2 a.m. and ask me to go to the store to get her a certain kind of pickle or some crazy shit like that. And I'd be like, what? And I'd say, really? And she goes, yeah, I know. It doesn't really make any sense. I said, but I'd really like one. But the thing about it was, she would say, and if you don't want to do it, I get it. and I won't hold it against you. And she really actually wouldn't hold it against me. And this is so unusual. The vast majority of people, I certainly have never had another relationship where they say, oh, if you don't do this, if you don't want to, that's fine. Then they just actually don't mind. It's just another, they are going to mind. They are going to hold it out. They're going to hold it again. But she wouldn't. She would just be honest and be like, yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense. But I still feel that way. And I'd be like, okay, that's honest enough. That's good. And just some honesty. I can live with just about any kind of insane, even ridiculous people, if they're honest about it. Like, yeah, this is why I do it. And it's like, okay, well, I wouldn't do that, but you do, and I get it. And I don't know why that even carries weight with me. It really shouldn't even carry weight with me, but it does. It does. And, there's just a huge difference between what someone says and what they do. And if I'd learned young that listening to what someone says is a waste of time unless you're trying to figure out how big a liar they are, you just watch what they do. And that's who they are. And if they screw people over or they're always making excuses because they don't actually do what they say, then just stop listening to the excuses and just start realizing that whenever they tell you something, it's not going to be true anyway. And that would have saved me a lot of trouble.
Well, you mentioned earlier, before we get out of here, we were talking about authority, and Larkin Rose is always talking about this. It's the belief in authority. It's the belief in authority. And I'm always like, that needs to be amended. It's not the belief in authority. If I go train, and the trainer is great. He's the coach. Here's the hierarchy. You're the boss.
Right.
But it's the belief in arbitrary authority. That's really what it is. It's the idea that people just have the right to, be a boss. I don't even know you.
Right.
I don't respect you. Why do I have to listen to you?
Right. That's why the way it used to work was, these guys who had these armies, they had to lead from the front, man.
That's right.
I mean, you had to earn the respect of the army. You had to go fight and show them that, hey, look, if you stick with me, I'm not just going to get you killed. I'm going to have a good plan, and I can anticipate this. That's great. I've got no problem with people like none with problem like that. Well, it's just stupid crap with he's a 4-star general. Okay, so what? What has he ever done? Every battle he's ever been in, the fucking people all get killed. He's also terrible.
He's a 4-star general because he's a political ass kisser.
Exactly.
At this point.
That's all it is.
Right.
Right.
It's I read this book a long time ago about Alexander the Great. I mean, who knows how much of it was true, but the stories were this blonde guy in the front. Right. Bam, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, obviously, if he did what he did and he had those men follow him, he must have done something right. I mean, you know what I mean? He's still talking about the guy to this day.
I mean, you watch, We Were Soldiers once, and you watch Hal Moore, and as much as Hollywood may want to do something, that was a legit battle. It actually was fought. That's the way he was. That's the way the guy was. First to step on, last to step off. He was there putting himself at risk, and he knew what he was doing. He took it seriously. Well, that's why people respected him and followed him, because, you respect and follow these people who they know what they're doing. If I have a lawyer that I think, hey, he's a very good lawyer, I'll respect his opinion on an issue if he's looked into it. If it's a guy who knows a joker, what do I care? That's just Dr. Fauci, just bullshit. What do I care? Yeah. And I need to have some concrete evidence, not just some crap someone says. I need to see it. I need to see, okay, that's actually what's happening.
I mean, and a real leader knows that and is going to show it to you.
Right.
You
they don't have any problem with that either. Right. They're completely fine with that. They expect it. Yeah, they don't expect you just to kneel down to them, because they don't. And so, I agree.
I just watched this movie last night it was from 1976 called The Boys in Company C. You ever heard of it?
Oh yeah, that was a huge movie at the time. I remember how startling it was. Yeah, it was startling because it's really gritty. It's really gritty.
It is. It's kind of it was good, but it's goofy now. But it's as a side note, it's dated in the style of filmmaking. Even though the 70s is the great, it was just. It must have been like so cutting edge and realistic then. Exactly. Now it's kind of, but it did have its moments, and it was good. But just a side note, Full Metal Jacket. I don't know if he was trying to remake it or if he was paying homage to it, but it's like he almost kind of made the same kind of. He copied a lot of stuff.
Really?
Oh yeah, Yeah,
I'll have to watch Full Metal again. I love that movie.
and I love it too. But I mean, it's the same sequence. They go to training camp together, and then they go to war together. I mean, they didn't have the psycho guy, the kid kill himself and lose his mind like they did in Full Metal Jacket. But the scene in the beginning where they're shaving their hair and taking a photo of them when they stop or whatever. I mean, there's so many things. The grabbing their ball. This is my rifle. They kind of like they sing at night. You're going to do the Marine.
Oh yeah,
prayer. I mean, it's different, but it's the same. He definitely ripped from it. There's no question about it. I didn't.
Right.
But
I mean, influenced by it for sure.
But it actually makes you realize how great Kubrick was because it's so much better than.
Yeah.
It's so.
Kubrick is so good. I mean, Full Metal Jacket, probably the best military movie for me ever. It's just so good.
Oh, that's a tough. That's a big statement. That's a bold statement right there.
I'm just saying, I love it so much.
Well, the guy, what's the guy named Lee Remy, or that was the guy that played the sergeant?
Yeah, the DI.
He's the same guy in Company C, Boys in Company C.
Oh, okay, and he was a DI.
Yeah, he
was a real DI.
Yeah, he was. Same dude. They have those scenes where he's like, "You maggot," that kind of thing, and they do this. They running and singing. I mean, it's a big. Wow. Yeah, you should check it out. You'll be like, "Whoa." But I don't know why I went off on that, but so here we are. Where is this going? If you could, 20 years from now, what does the world look like, in your opinion?
Wow. I don't know. I mean, it's continuing more and more and more centralization. They're going to definitely have gotten like way down the road in the electronic prison by then. I mean, in all likelihood, we're going to be all locked in at that point.
What does that mean? What does that look like? What's my daily life look like locked in?
No, I think it may or may not change the daily life of a decent number of people, assuming that large numbers of people. It depends on how many robots they can really deploy that are legitimately decent and being able to do human activities. That to me is the big difference. And I don't know what their rate is. They're certainly increasing that, but just getting them deployed, manufactured, repaired, and putting them out, it's going to take time. And once that's sufficient, then they're just going to get rid of most of the people. But until then, assuming 20 years from now that hasn't happened, way more control in the social credits and things like that. Way more. Just incredible amounts of restrictions will be available. Everything will be run through some kind of deserving quantifier. Medical care, everything will be run through there. Types of jobs, what your kids can do, all that shit will just get more and more and more run through that. And it'll be very subtle. It'll all be justified for whatever reason. They have 1,000 of them. But I anticipate that the people will be way more brainwashed by there. So much more brainwashed than now, because they're all going to rely on AI to do all their thinking, and they already do very little thinking at this point. Imagine if it gets teachers or AI, grading papers is AI, tons and tons of employment stuff is AI, medical AI, and people are just going to be, wow, they're just going to be so brainwashed at that point.
Hey,
how much it's going to affect day-to-day life? Are people still going to be able to go to a job they don't like, come home and eat poison and sit in front of the TV? Yes. Well, that's what they do now. So how much will that vary? I don't think that much. I just don't think that kind of thing that people care about, I don't think much of it's going to change. They're still going to have people going to work, doing stupid shit jobs, more AI, maybe fewer this or that. Still going to have the ability to watch TV and be distracted with politics and all the different miscellaneous distractions. There'll be tons more AI distractions and entertainment and crap like that. But that's what people mostly do. They do a little work. You're going to have a lot more disabled people, I suspect, and you'll have people wasting their time in all of these dead ends with AI avatars and AI friends and AI dates and AI, chat bots, and there'll just be tremendous amounts of it. And the people will be completely convinced that this is the greatest we've ever had it, and they're super free. That's what I would suspect, that they will tell me about how great it is. And people like you and me who lived through how much better it was before will realize how brainwashed they are, and there'll be no getting through to them. That would be my guess if I had to just guess what will happen,
with the AI, there's already like this guy made this Jones Plantation song on AI. It sounds unbelievable. And when I first heard it, I was like, holy crap, you can really sing, man. This is incredible. And he's like, no, I made this through AI. And then
Incredible.
he tried to like explain to me how this AI is going to free us, and how what he's doing is all this. I'm not picking on the guy. He seems like a nice enough guy, and I appreciate him making a song, but how like, it's actually what he's doing is actually creating music, the prompting, and they call them prompting engineers, which is so ridiculous. So there is a way where people are starting to like justify giving up their own autonomy to these things and calling themselves, I'm an engineer because I told an AI to do something. It's like,
there you go. Yeah, I just know it's going to happen because I can look around and see that they already do it all the time with stuff that makes no sense now, where it's like, well, I don't understand. How can you defend this? This makes no sense. And they'll just keep defending it. And most people just live in a total fantasy land their whole lives now. And it's just,
I use AI.
Worse.
I use AI for clipping, and I'm going to probably use it for the poster for Barnum World.
Why not? I think it's a great tool. I think people should use it. It's just that people, it'll be slow boil the frog. They'll have the celebrities. You'll be able to get a chip if you want to really interact in the video game and shit like that. And then you put it in your head and, wow, you got to get one, Lee. You're going to love this thing. And I'm not going to get one. And then the people will enjoy it. And they'll tell me how I don't know. I'm the one who's confused, like they do now. They've been doing this my whole life, telling me I'm confused. Okay, whatever. All right. If not buying into what 95% of the people buy into is me being confused, then great, because I'm never going to buy into it. I'm never going to buy into it.
Let's get out of here on a positive note. How are they going to kill us? How are they going to kill us all?
I think honestly, I think for the most part, it's just going to die out. I think they're sterilizing the population at a massive rate, and so you're already getting lower birth rates. You're gonna all these trans and all this low T shit. The guys aren't gonna care, and the relationship between men and women's all been broken. So a lot of that's already gonna take care of itself. Obviously, more jabbing. Just ramp up those mNRA ramps. Just you already got poison food. They can put anything in there. The spraying certainly can't help. It'll be slow. Then you've always got the additional, supposed pandemics and terror events that could happen. And there's so many options they have to get rid of us. And nobody's ever going to catch on, because if you can't catch on to the COVID scam, you're never going to catch on to a scam. That was just obviously a scam. And so they can tell you anything. Those same people, they believe the 19 terrorists and the hijackers, and Epstein killed himself. And go down the list, and Biden's got prostate cancer, and they never proved this. Oh, they didn't prove that. We can't.
All of a sudden,
they're told.
Have you ever heard of the Calhoun? I think it's Calhoun, the Calhoun experiment.
No, I don't know.
He created the world of mice. I think there were mice. He created this like perfect world of mice.
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with the mouse world, where if you give them everything they need, the rats and the mice, they just within just a very short period of time, few generations, they're all either killing themselves. They
die off. They die off.
They can't deal with it, and it's clear we're living in that. You can just see that the humans.
It's worse than you think. It's like the same thing is happening. So it's the one that really when he had it dialed in was called Universe 25. I just know about this because of this Barnum World. I went through this.
I love it.
And so after he had this dial in, all the food they need, everything was perfect. It was a perfect amount of space for the rats. I think it was mice or rats. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. I can never remember that kind of stuff. Who cares? So I only remember what I need to remember. But at first they blossom and the population shoots up. So it's like almost like the 50s in America, right? And then what ends up happening is this crazy shit starts happening. So certain mice, they become like effeminate, okay? And all they do is groom all day long.
Right.
They groom and groom and groom, and they become very effeminate. They don't enact with women anymore. I mean, does this sound familiar?
It's so classic.
Here's the crazy thing, and they have high levels of anxiety. Like they have permanent anxiety.
Right.
So they're just like grooming all day long. They have a super easy life, but they're like constantly in a state of fear. Then there's the women start raising the kids and then they get like bitter and they start hating the
multiple levels of more screwed up.
So they stop breeding, they stop having kids, and then there's like a tiny group of mice that are like these alpha males that get all the women and everything.
Chad,
yeah, like Andrew Tate type of guys, right?
Go. Right.
And then
after mine, I've known forever that when I went to college with, he's been big into these experiments for years. We've laughed about him many times because we just look around and it's like, this is obviously human nature. You can't get away from, you can't just have a life that we have and imagine that that's going to work. There's not even remotely enough time to adjust to what we do now compared to what we are designed to do. We are designed to walk around, build stuff, make decisions, basically be in peace and quiet for the most part, which almost nobody's involved with. Not to stare at a little screen and be bombarded with information. I saw a figure and it was like, I want to say 300 years ago, but something roughly about that time, that the average person might not ever see an image. They might at most see some kind of like homemade art kind of thing or something in their church. They would never see an image. Now you're just seeing images all day long. All day long you're seeing just insane, crazy images all the time and moving images and the audio and everything else. And that book written in the 70s that about television being so dangerous, I think it's called The Case for Outlawing Television. I can't remember. It was written by this guy from the Eastern Europe. And it's very clear the human beings in their brain, in their subconscious area, they cannot tell the difference between a movie and real life. The vast, vast majority of people, if you've seen it in a movie, that was real. It has the same effect on you as if it actually happened to you. And once you understand that, you realize there's no chance in a system like this where everybody has got a phone and they're just scrolling and watching videos and TikTok. Their head is just going to be a complete mess. It's just going to be a total mess. It can never, ever work. And it's a shame, but, again, what can we do about it,
Well, I mean, if we're never, supposed to be here, yet here we are. So who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess for me, it's like a saying my buddy has, which is if there's no solution, there's no problem. And that's really what I adopt is like, well, what is the solution I can do? I'm living here. So, there's nothing. Okay, well, I can't worry about it. I'm going to control what I can control. That's all. And that's a very, very small portion of what's going on. A very small portion of what's going on. Is it something I can actually control? And mostly all I can control is the way I react to what happens to me. That's the only thing I'm really in control of. And I learned after 9 years of ACA that most of my life I'd never even been in control of that. I thought I was, but in fact, I wasn't in control. And that's it. That's about all I get to control. And I can make little movements and I can try to help other people who want help, but I can't make them. And I have to accept the fact that most people aren't going to want help. They aren't going to do anything about it. And I've got to be okay with that. And, I'm at the point where I am okay with that.
That is actually a positive way to leave. Where there's no solution, there's no problem. That's a really good, peaceful way to look at things.
It is.
You can't control what you can only control what you can control.
Right. What am I going to do about the fact that it's hot here in the summer?
Yeah.
What am I going to do about it? Unless I move, I got to make accommodation for that.
Try and enjoy it.
It's going to be hot out there. That's all. There's no use bitching about it. There's no use complaining about it. No use, well, I wish I could go skiing. Dude, it's hot. There's plenty of things you can do in the heat. Go do those. That's it.
Yeah, enjoy it. I mean, that's it. It's like, when it gets like 120 here, I'm in Arizona. I actually go out and take a walk because I get to experience it. I'm like, there's been a couple times where like, this is the hottest habitable place on earth. I'm like, I'm going to go see what that feels like,
Right. It's insane.
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, man, I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been fun talking to you.
Fun.
Always. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next
baby.
2 weeks.
Less
2
than 2
weeks. Yeah.
weeks.
And we'll do a private screening next week. I'm going to be up to my ears. It's coming down to the wire, man, to get this thing done.
Confidence.
If you're if you're watching this and listening to this, tell them Legal Man, like if you like it, subscribe, and on those podcast apps, if you like the show, give it a review if it's not too much of a pain in the ass if you already have an account, because it really helps that our algorithmic overlords so I can
Right.
grow the
Yeah,
show.
You are supposed to. It's true.
All right, brother. Take it easy, man.
All right,
Thank
my
you.
friend.
See ya.
Take care.
Okay, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Tregsman with 2 G's and an S. We'll also have the links to our subscription and social media in the show notes, wherever you watched or listened to the episode. If you're currently supporting the show and Drew TV, thank you. And we'll see you next week.